Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Valpo Football Weekly, presented by our friends at Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. Brandon Vickery with you. Glad to be joined by the head coach of the Valpo football program, Andy Waddle. His team is in a bye this week, but we'll look back at Saturday's game against a top 25 test on the road at North Dakota. And, Coach, I know special teams have been pretty good through the first three games, but I'm sure that's one area you want to improve on going forward from Saturday. So maybe let's start there. What did you see in the special teams phase of the game against North Dakota?
Yeah, I think like the thing that stands out is some of the mishaps that we had on special teams, particularly, the kick return for the touchdown and the punt game, Um on the kick return for the touchdown, Micah McKay scores the long touchdown and we sub him and on the kickoff team and um they kind of hit it right back in that area. I think that our two most middle guys, one guy's got to squeeze down a little bit more. The other guy's got to avoid that contact early. You have the avoid zone, the contact zone. He's got to get to the contact zone to eat that space up. But the combination of those couple of things created a seam. They hit it hard. The guy was fast. Typically you'd like to think that your kicker could slow that guy down a little bit, but once he got the crease, we didn't have a chance. We didn't have anybody on the field as fast as he was, and then he went the rest of the way. In the punt game, I think the thing that is the most frustrating about the punt game is our problems were not anything that North Dakota, really did. They were problems um, with with our execution, and that's frustrating because you look and you go out there and they bring the heat early in the game. They're bringing multiple guys, and we're getting it picked up, and we're punting the ball, and we're going down the field, and we're covering those guys. Um, and then in the third quarter, they don't really bring a lot of pressure, but our punter gets off of his mark on one of them, and he pulls to the one side of the shield, and they wrap the shield and block the punt, and that's something that's in our control. We have a bad snap, which we don't field cleanly, and then they split the shield on one guy coming, and those things I think really we have to get those cleaned up. I think it's a lack of focus because they had, weren't bringing the pressure, and our guys had a moment of slipped focus. And you know, I think that we can get those fixed, but we just have to kind of continue to mature as football players and understand that the focus isn't a sometimes thing, discipline isn't a sometimes thing. The essence of discipline is that it's an all the time thing, and we're still working through some of that.
We've talked some about Micah Markley this season, but I wanted to ask you about him again in this setting. Big game with 13 tackles on Saturday. Just what's impressed you about him that has him starting for you as a true freshman?
Yeah, I mean, Mike has got a good nose for the ball. I think that, he plays with some intensity and some passion, and he can got some speed, and he can he fits gaps well. I mean, I think like the one, he creases a gap, and it looks like there's going to be a seam on the edge, and he gets them, slows them down enough, and then gathers them and gets them down for a TFL on, what was a really good play that if he doesn't make that play could have been a big play for them. But he's got a good mindset, good nose for the ball. I think that he's going to be a staple in, our program for several years to come.
Well, the other Micah McKay, had your big offensive play on Saturday. What type of weapon can he be for your offense?
I think Mike McKay is a special player. I mean, I've thought that since I got here. I think that he presents some challenges because he's a big-bodied receiver who can get down in there and block. And honestly, at halftime, we were you know talking, and one of the key things, and it was a thing that we wanted to do in the game, but how are we going to get him some touches? And ran that play specifically to get him a target, and he goes out and makes the most of his target, making two guys miss and then running the rest of the way to the end zone.
The score doesn't always tell the whole story when you're obviously facing one of the top teams nationally in FCS. As you've had a chance to look back, maybe what are some other positives you can take away or things that you take away as a football team from Saturday to try to build upon going forward?
I think that like I, I wasn't overly pleased with the way that we played, at Western Illinois. I thought that, certainly there was some things out there that we could have done better, particularly, big plays on defense. And, we limited their big plays defensively. I think that when you look at the score and, you see the big number, certainly that doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, we give up a kick return for the touchdown. The defense doesn't have anything to do with that. We drop a snap on or get a low snap, don't clean it, whatever. They take over inside the 5 yard line and get a score. Then, tell the whole story. I think that, we had another play where they gained possession at the 21 yard line, didn't gain a yard, kick a field goal, doesn't tell the whole story. And then, some other bad field position plays that the defense was stuck with. And, I had to go out there and play a lot of plays. And, I think he gave up, one big play against a really good offense, tackled much better than we did the week before. And I think that there are more positives there than what there was negative. Obviously, you walk away and you, you see us, execute the punt team at a really high level where they're you know, bringing the house, coming after us, and you see us execute that and cover down the field. I think that was good. I think that, you see us on the opening kickoff, return, get one out, to around the 30-yard line, and then, you'd stacked on the late hit and get the ball to midfield. The problem for us is not the number of positives, it's we have to be more consistent. And that's something that I think is common with a youthful team. And we certainly have a lot of guys that are in their first year as starters. But as you get to midseason, as you get into league play, certainly we expect to clean up those inconsistencies and be more efficient throughout the game.
Let's talk about the bye week this week. Do you like the timing of the bye week prior to the start of league play? And what do you hope to accomplish this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bye week timing is probably good. You have preseason for, a month before, then you have a month of football, and, so you're 2 months in, and then you kind of have 2 more months to go of conference play. So, it gets you to your middle of the season just to exhale a little bit, to get a couple guys that are beat up, maybe back out there healthy. Certainly we have to, still put in some work this week and get better, but it gives you a chance to exhale and prepare for conference play.
There he is, the head coach of the Valpo football program, Andy Waddle, off this week before starting league play at Drake next week. And we'll talk to you again next week on Valpo Football Weekly, presented by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.